Welcome to the course Introduction to Forensic Chemistry. So, in this particular course, we will be seeing about the different types of cases which comes under the Forensic Chemistry division. What are those types of cases? How we do the sample analysis in those types of cases? This we see in this particular course. As per the prerequisite part for this particular course, students should be in a position to understand about the basic concepts of chemistry. For example, molar concept, about the preparation of different types of solution, doing their standardization, also basic concepts of physical chemistry and organic chemistry. Now, the objectives of these courses would be the student will understand what is forensic chemistry, what are the different types of cases which we deal in this particular division, then definition of forensic chemistry, its historical perspective, about the majorly the role of the forensic chemist, then what is the significance and scope of forensic science and what are the different techniques which we specifically used in forensic chemistry, and yes, the cases that are generally encountered in forensic chemistry. Now let's start with the introduction part. So for the introductory part, let's see that forensic science in its broadest sense is the application of techniques and principles of science for the purpose of administration of criminal justice system. Chemistry is an integral part of forensic science. Forensic scientists must understand that the principles, concepts and the techniques of chemistry to perform their duties in an effective manner. Scientists of all types are often interested in the composition of substances. However, the types of substances may vary according to their nature of work. Like pharmaceutical scientists identify the substances in a drug sample to set the expiry date. This is the work which they do. Then similarly, our scientists who are forensic scientists identify substances to connect suspect to crime or to reconstruct a crime, that is to determine how a crime has been committed. For example, arsenic, it was commonly used poison during the Roman times, and the first instance of an actual chemical test for poison is in the Blandy trial, which was conducted in during 1752. Now let's see the definition of forensic chemistry. So it is the application of principles of chemistry to law enforcement and criminal justice system. There are various analytical methods which may be used to find out the chemical changes that occurred during any incident, and in this way it helps in the reconstruction of crime scene. And also forensic chemistry meets the need of both the scientific and legal communities by innovation in its research, practice and presentation. In fact, criminal justice system would suffer without forensic chemistry. Forensic chemistry acts as an armed force in the pursuit of justice. It gives the voice to the silent witnesses of physical evidences. It plays a critical role in the administration of justice, not only help in the investigation and prosecution of crime, but also assist in the meeting of the ends of justice. Now the role of forensic chemist. So the ability of forensic professional to establish the presence of link between the accused and a crime by matching physical evidences collected from the scene of crime and those which are obtained from the victim or accused, which is on the basis of law of comparison and which strengthens the case of prosecution. Forensic chemists perform different analysis to perform on the different types of materials in order to determine the nature, composition of such evidences. A highly trained forensic chemist is capable of determining the composition, nature of material and also predicting the source as well as matching the evidence which is collected from the crime scene with the control sample. Modern chemistry employs the traditional analytical techniques hand in hand with much younger method of analysis. Arsonists, for example, often use accelerants which are like kerosene, diesel or gasoline to accelerate the rate of combustion, and each accelerant has its own unique composition. A forensic chemist may search for and collect burnt, unburnt material samples, extract the volatile hydrocarbons from them and may use gas chromatography to separate the components of these samples. Now let's see the different types of cases which are encountered in forensic chemistry division. So firstly, we have NDPS cases, which are narcotics, drugs and psychotropic substances cases, which are most commonly obtained cases in chemistry division. Then we have acid attack cases also. We have arson cases in which there may be cases of fire. Is it an intentional fire or not? This we have to determine. Then the illicit liquors or illegal liquors, cases of food adulteration, cosmetic products, sometimes metals and alloys in cheating cases are also there, inks and dyes, and also major portion is of trap cases in which we use a particular chemical phenolphthalein in order to determine, or it helps in the bribery cases. Now let's see about the theoretical aspect of forensic analysis. So after evidence is being collected from the crime scene, they are sent to the FSL. So here the forensic chemists allow a specific process based on the scientific method for analyzing evidences. So samples collected from a crime scene and brought to the lab for analysis are called question samples. And because why they are called question samples? Because their identity and origin of those samples are unknown basically. So in order to draw conclusion about the identity or origin of question samples, the forensic chemist need known sample as a reference, which is also known as a control sample. So a control sample might be collected as a part of evidence. For instance, a hair sample which is collected from a suspect. Forensic analysis may be performed firstly in order to identify a question sample, then compare a sample under question to a known sample for the purpose of determining the source of its origin. Then the result of such comparison can link a question sample and several known samples either to a class of samples with several possible origin or more than the question samples. So a forensic analysis follows the order of identification, classification and individualization. So the challenges found during each phase of analysis are different for different evidences. Often identification is straightforward and obvious to the untrained eyes. But the fact is that the expertise and sophisticated instrumentation is required for making a proper, accurate analysis. So when a question sample is submitted to a crime laboratory for analysis, the first task is identification. For example, if a white powder is submitted for analysis, the primary objective will be to determine its identity. If the powder is suspected of being a controlled substance, the forensic scientist will carry out a series of analysis to identify the powder. Since each drug has different sets of physical and chemical properties, an entirely different series of analysis is required to identify each drug. The forensic scientist must first make an educated guess as to identify a substance. Now let's see the types of identification. So we start with a preliminary examination, and among them presumptive analysis is the first step. So presumptive analysis look at chemical and physical properties that are not unique enough by themselves for identification, but yes, that provide enough information to narrow the search. For example, if the powder reacts with sodium nitroprusside in the presence of sodium bicarbonate and produce a very deep blue color product, the forensic scientist may guess that the question sample might be a methamphetamine. In the same way, this is how presumptive analysis help us in the method of elimination. Now we can have an idea that yes, this particular sample might be a methamphetamine. So, however, a number of similar compounds, all containing nitrogen atoms with one hydrogen atom and two attached carbon atom, will also produce a deep blue colored product. This analysis does not confirm that the substance is methamphetamine, but it certainly narrows down the number of possibilities. Now the forensic scientist can proceed to be more conclusive test, knowing that he is on the right track. So presumptive analysis are usually quick and inexpensive to perform. Another example of simple and popular presumptive test commonly used in forensic science laboratories are luminol test, which we use for the detection of hemoglobin, for the detection of blood. Then we move on the confirmatory test. So when a presumptive analysis is negative, they exclude the potential drug candidate. So when they are positive, they direct the forensic scientist toward viable confirmatory test or analysis. whereas presumptive analysis only narrows the possible identities of a substance, but confirmatory analysis identify a question sample absolutely. They are required for court and must be performed to convict someone for possession of an illegal substances. These analyses use those chemicals or physical properties which are unique to the substances for the purpose of identification. Typically, confirmatory analysis require more time and expense than presumptive analysis. These analyses often require the use of sophisticated chemical instrument to determine the unique properties that led to definite identification. Now, we come on the instrumental techniques. So these are the part of our confirmatory technique. We confirm a particular drug presence or absence by using any of these kind of instrumental techniques. So generally we have seen that destructive methods are what? They are generally those methods in which we take a sample from object under analysis and so injure the object. Most of the spectroscopic techniques fall in this category. But non-destructive techniques on other hand maintain the integrity of object and thus are the methods of choice by forensic examiner. So most common form of non-destructive technique is your infrared. They are generally the non-destructive technique. Now let's move on the sophisticated instrument which we can commonly use. So we have AAS, which is known as atomic absorption spectroscopy. We generally do the inorganic analysis over it. Then we have ICP, which is inductively coupled plasma, again for inorganic analysis. Then we have LCMS, which is liquid chromatography mass spectroscopy. This is a destructive technique in which we analyze our organic compounds. We have NMR, which is for inorganic analysis, which is nuclear magnetic resonance. Then we have gas chromatography, which is used for the volatile components and also a destructive technique. We have HPLC, which is a high performance liquid chromatography, which is generally used for the organic analysis, for the analysis of different types of pesticides in a sample or different forms of drugs. It's again a destructive technique. And then we also have HPTLC, which is known as high performance thin layer chromatography, which is for the organic analysis and also a destructive technique. Apart from this, we have number of sophisticated techniques. We have LCMS, MS, we have GCMS. So we can couple the MS with any form of this instrumental technique and we can get a very highly reliable, precise result. So these are the different steps by we can analyze our particular unknown sample. So these are the references. You can refer them. Thank you.